I'm Tanim Ahmed, Special Correspondent, Dhaka Tribune. I have with me here today Afsan Chowdhury, researcher, journalist, and commentator.
Thanks.
You pretty much made this call middle of last month, writing an obituary on the sculpture. Some people are calling it statue, and the dismantling of Themis. Is this, I'm sure this is one of the few occasions that you would rather have been wrong than right. Would you say that?
I think I was expecting it, in the sense that I'm looking more at the political patterns that exist in our country. And it's politics of convenience, it's politics of exigency, it's politics of opportunity. Certainly not politics of idealism. And I don't think any country, particularly countries of our kind, have politics of idealism. So once it had become an issue, and particularly when it had been picked up by what would be called a sensitive group, I think the death sentence on that statue was already given. And if you look at the political pattern that is emerging, most of it is around the 2018 or 19 election. So there is no reason to think that Sheikh Hasina would take a risk angering what would be called a conservative section of society. So what is the risk, or what is the kind of value she puts on that statue, or whatever you want to call it? Nothing. The Supreme Court is also not what would be traditionally called an ally of the executive, and the conflict between the Supreme Court and the executive is quite strong. And I agree with the article you wrote, where you mentioned that it's also about the space in which the Supreme Court is. But the kind of pressure that was brought in when the Prime Minister says, I don't like that statue, clearly indicates that the Prime Minister is leaning towards removal. The Chief Justice, it's reported, had also said that I had talked to other lawyers, and the lawyers had said that, I want it to be removed. Given that, I think it was almost inevitable that it had to go. If everyone is opposed to it, then I see no reason to expect this to survive. But I think the issue is not about the statue at all. Issue is keeping any constituency that can be potentially harmful to the 2018 election quiet. So this government is also going to do that. They are not going to allow any new space to rise.
Isn't it a very dangerous path to take? The Hifazat, they have already upped the ante, and they have asked for removal of all statues. The next one could be Oparajeo Bangla, or any of the thousands of idols in the Hindu temples in Bangladesh. Wouldn't they want to take advantage of this weakness of the government and go down that way too?
No, I don't think they'll do it, but it's possible they will make a demand and appeal of those in the public spaces. I think they have made it clearly that we are about public space. So in public space, no statues. Now, if such a situation comes, and what would be in front of Awami League to do? Well, I think if such a situation is a threat to Awami League in power, Awami League will certainly remove them. If it allows Awami League to be popular, so popular that it will overwhelm BNP in 2018, Awami League will give in. It is not a question of hanging on to a few statues, because I think if you look at the issue of sentimentality and the issue of reality, you would say that the sentimentality is the statue, and this is our representation of 71. I am not so sure it is, but the reality is the fact that in this country we have such extreme wealth, such extreme power, no rule of law. We have complete impunity for law enforcement agencies, complete lack of accountability of the executive, a almost near dysfunctional judiciary because of structural reasons. I think that is where the bigger loss of the ideals of 71 is, not so much in the symbolic statue, one or two statue. I mean, that assessment is more important for us to make, because we keep on harping about the statue will go and the liberation war spirit will go.
So let me ask the question in a different way. Let's not, even if it is not the ideals of 71, would you say that secular ideals are being compromised?
Historically, in my study of 71, I do not see Awami League as promising anyone that I'm not going to change and shift my position. The 73 position, if you look at the 4 principles of constitution, we didn't have democracy, we had one-party rule. It's hardly multi-party democracy. Socialism is gone and dead. Third is, if you mean Bengali nationalism, I would contest it on intellectual and historical grounds, and it actually excludes the Adivashis, it excludes many other identities, which leaves us with something called secularism, which we never even understood. And I don't think the people who established secularism in the constitution even understood what the context in which they were saying. I think protection of minorities is very important, and there is an uncompromising position we need to take, but we don't. The reason we don't take this is because Bangladeshis are poor, Bangladeshis in the villages, Bangladeshis are not interested in taking over Hindu property. Those who take over Hindu property are not anti-seculars, they are bloodied robbers, but they are also powerful. Most of them are linked to the ruling parties. That has nothing to do with secularism. Are Bangladeshis naturally secular? Yes, Bangladeshis are more secular than any population group in whole of South Asia, quite simply because we are such a mix. Our religious behavior, structure, faith practices are little bit of this, little bit of this, little bit of this, little bit of. I teach this in the class, and the evidence is all there. It is difficult for us to be very monolithic in our belief structure. So we are naturally secular, if you want to mean. I think we are naturally tolerant because economically that makes sense to us. We practice religion because we need to survive. Now the problem is we are extremely insecure. In my study on religious practices, I see a major problem is the extreme insecurity of religious ideas, extreme insecurity of social ideas, extreme insecurity of cultural ideas, but most important, extreme insecurity of economic ideas. So to cope with this kind of insecurity, you need something, because if you are in trouble, nobody is going to help you. Your family is going to help you, maybe your neighbors are going to help you, but your state is not going to come and help you, your institutions are not going to come. So you become more and more dependent on something you believe to be, which in this case is religion.
So what you're saying is that there are far bigger and stronger priorities to take care of in Bangladesh today than this one statue.
I think so.
And although it may be significant, or the idea of a statue being dismantled is certainly something that is not goes against our ideals, but it's not so much of a big deal. And in fact, you also make the point that this is actually a rift or a tussle between the judiciary and the executive.
Also because Awami League does not want any space left from where some kind of resistance may come. Awami League has learnt its lesson from Shahbag, when such a big movement was crushed in a matter of days by using the mosque. The mosque network was used to destroy Shahbag, and very effectively. Awami League is going to take over the mosque, and Hifazat is the best way of taking over the mosque. Now, Hifazat goes to the mosque. Hifazat people told me this. We look after the mosque. We look after the spiritual welfare, whatever they understand. By aligning themselves with Awami League is ensured that the mosque can ever be used against Awami League. Awami League is thinking of 2018. I mean, he's not thinking of next week or the week after. Awami League has other things to worry about. But it was making sure that the one point of resistance which Awami League may think is possible and not within its control, the mosque, has to go. Awami League's big security comes from the fact that the army is not anti-Awami League. There is no restiveness within the army. That makes it feel safe. So if in the civilian population, Awami League does not worry about anyone else. But Awami League also worries about the fact Narayanganj election says that 35% of the people actually are going to go against Awami League. If that is the case, then Awami League, and if you add 10%, so that becomes 45%. Now, Awami League does not want that 10% to be against it, and Awami League does not want the swing vote to be against it. So this is what Awami League is trying to take care. Because Awami League knows about 30-35% vote is there, and there is an anti-30-35% vote. So the swing vote, Awami League has got to take care. So make sure there are less and less unhappiness, disagreement with Awami League till 2018.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.